Hello everyone and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. Today in this session we are going to have a discussion on science and technology and the strategy that you need to have in your mains examination for science and tech. So in this session we'll understand what is the crux of the syllabus for science and tech in your GS paper 3 and the strategy that you need, the sources that you need, and we'll also take some examples from the previous year papers to understand how the questions come in the examination. So first and foremost, let's start with the basic syllabus. And if you see the syllabus, you'll see that there are 3 points that have been mentioned in the syllabus for science and technology. First, science and technology developments and their applications and effects in everyday life. Achievement of Indians in science and technology, indigenization of technology, and developing new technology. And then awareness in the field of IT, space, computers, robotics, nanotechnology, biotechnology, and issues related to intellectual property rights. So these are the 3 points which have been mentioned as a part of the syllabus for your mains examination. So let's try to dissect what the syllabus says and what's the meaning of all these 3 phrases that we see here. So the first one says science and technology developments and their applications in everyday life. Now, what do we mean when we say everyday life and effects of science and technology in our everyday life? Now, one thing that we must not misunderstand here is that it is not talking about your personal life, it is not talking about your gadgets, it's not talking about your social media, your internet, but when we say everyday life, right? When we say everyday life, the meaning of the term everyday life here would be the society. How exactly is the society gaining from science and technology? What are the kinds of developments in the field of science and technology that is helping the society as a whole? So this is what the meaning is to be derived as. So when you look at the questions, and we'll take some examples from the previous year papers, you'll find that these are questions related to the society in general, how the Indian society benefits from science and technology, how people at large benefit from science and technology. So that's why developments and their effects in everyday life. The second point is about achievement of Indians in science and technology, indigenization of technology, and developing new technology. Now when we say achievement of Indians in science and technology, again just understand this, that this does not mean that you'll start learning about each and every scientist. It's not going to ask you about the biography of a scientist. It is not going to ask you a scientist centric question, but rather the questions would be based on the organizations that we have in India, all the things that we have achieved as a nation. This is what it means by achievement of Indians. So for example, if you speak of ISRO and you start talking about all the developmental changes that ISRO has had on the Indian society, then in that case you might say that this is what achievement of Indians is, because you have a lot of Indian scientists and scientific minds who have been working in ISRO for the last 40 odd years in developing all this what we have. So that's why this is something which is very, very important to understand, that here we are not discussing about an individual scientist or the work of a particular scientist, but rather what we have achieved as a nation. The second point is indigenization of technology. Now, when we say indigenization of technology, what we basically mean is how exactly do we use technology in the context of our own country, in the context of India. So for example, if you have any technology that has been developed elsewhere and is being used in India by the infrastructure in India, by the organizations in India, by various sectors in India, then in that case you would call it as indigenization of technology. Any technology that we might have bought from any other nation, any license that we might have acquired from anywhere else, any technology that was developed elsewhere but is being used in India in one form or the other, you'll say that this is indigenization of technology. So for example, let's say if we buy any defense equipments, if we buy any aircrafts, any missiles, in all these cases, there will be some modifications that we might do so that they can fit the Indian conditions. So for them to fit the Indian conditions, we need indigenization of technology. Then after that, the last point is developing new technology. And this is one of the most important areas where when it comes to science and technology, it's always about the scientific progress that we are making. It's always about the new technology that is being used in one way or the other by the Indian organization or society at large. So that's why we are talking about developing new technology. But these 2 points that we have seen, they all have to be taken in the context of the third point that you have on the screen. What does the third point say? Awareness in the fields of IT, space, computers, robotics, nanotechnology, biotechnology, and issues related to intellectual property rights. So, whether it is about developing a new technology, whether it is about achievement of Indians, whether it is about applications and effects in our everyday life, it's all related to all these fields, because these are the fields of technology in which India has been working, or the Indian scientific community has been working. So that's why whether the first point or the second point, both these points have to be studied in the context of the third point that you see. All right, so just remember this, that both these have to be studied in the context of the third point. That is, you have to derive your points or your topics from all the topics that have been listed here as the third point on your screen. So this is how we understand the syllabus. Now, when it comes to this syllabus or dissecting of the syllabus, we can divide it into various points. What are these various points? Space technology, energy, biotechnology, nanotechnology, artificial intelligence and robotics, IT and communication, diseases, defense, and intellectual property rights. Now, one basic difference that you'll see between what we discussed in our prelim syllabus versus the main syllabus is the fact that there is no general science that is expected out of you. There's no portion of physics, chemistry, or biology that is directly associated with the mains syllabus. So these are more related to technology in general. All right, they are more related to technology and not the basics of science. So here, when we look at technology, out of all these topics that have been listed in your screen, there are a couple of topics which are very, very important again, and you'll see that there are multiple questions in the past which have come from these areas. One is space technology and the other one is biotechnology. So space technology and biotechnology, these are two areas from where you'll find that the maximum number of questions have come. The third area that we might add now is energy, because energy is one segment from where there are multiple different aspects to be covered, where you'll see that India has been working a lot, the world has been working a lot in building the alternate sources of energy. So whether it is about solar energy or wind energy or bioenergy or nuclear energy, in all these cases, hydrogen, for example, as a fuel, in all these cases, energy as a topic has been in the middle of the discussion everywhere. So that's why energy as a topic has become even more important than it used to be. If you look at the past, you'll see that out of all these areas of energy, there is one particular topic from where a lot of questions have come, and that is nuclear technology. So nuclear technology has been a very, very important portion of energy, from where in the past papers you'll find a lot of questions. But going forward, it's not only going to be about nuclear technology, but you'll find that all the other sources that we just discussed, they all will start becoming important from your mains examination perspective. So whether it is about solar energy, whether it is about wind energy, whether it is about bioenergy or biofuels, or your nuclear energy, or even adding to the list, I would say hydrogen today. So all these will become very, very important for your examination. Then biotechnology also, you'll find that this is something that traditionally has been a very important topic, from where a lot of questions have also come in the past, and they'll keep asking questions from here. So this is again one topic which will be very, very important for your examination. Then the next topic is nanotechnology, and you'll find that in the last almost 10 years since the time the syllabus of mains examination changed, you'll find that there have been some instances where questions have come from this particular topic as well. So that's why this is one topic which has started to become important, although more from prelims perspective, but we have seen that there are scope of asking questions from this segment in your mains examination as well. Then after that, you have AI and robotics. Now robotics, I wouldn't say is a very important topic, but artificial intelligence is going to be very, very important. Artificial intelligence is one topic which has been growing a lot. We have seen that a lot has been happening in the world, whether in India or across the world. You'll find that there have been immense number of developments that keep on happening. For example, Niti Aayog. Niti Aayog now has a national strategy for artificial intelligence, so that the government would also try to understand how artificial intelligence can be infused with the current technologies in the country, so that more and more research and development can happen in the field of artificial intelligence. So that's why artificial intelligence, I would say, is one of the areas which will start becoming very, very important in the coming years. Whether you write this year or the next year or the next year to that, this is one area which will remain very, very important. Same goes for IT and communication. IT and communication as a chapter now has become even more important than it used to be, because this entire chapter is about information technology and wireless communication. So wireless communication has completely changed the world. You look at the ways you have been communicating over the past 1 decade, or especially over the last 6-7 years, you'll find that your modes of communication, your way of communicating has completely changed. So that's why this is one area that has now started to become very, very important, which was not a conventionally important topic for your mains examination. So for example, let's say if you consider 5G as a topic, 5G as a topic will be very, very important in the coming years. Question may come this year or the next year or the next year to that, but questions will come from this segment. So that's why this is one area that traditionally was not a very important topic, but going forward has now started becoming important. Then diseases and defense. These are two topics which I would say are more important from your current affairs perspective. Whenever the questions have come from these two topics, they have always come in the context of current affairs. They have never asked any static question from all these areas, defense or diseases. And we just looked at the syllabus. In the syllabus also there is no mention of these two topics, but questions can come from here. We have seen questions in the past from these two topics, but strictly in the context of current affairs. So that is how you also have to read. Whenever you're reading these two topics, always try to link that with current affairs and only study the current affairs parts of these two topics. It's highly unlikely that a static question will come from these two areas. Remember this. In the recent past, we have seen that there have been a lot of discussion about the different kinds of diseases which are related to our lifestyle. Same goes for mental health disorders. These also have started to become important now. The discussions have been happening in the world, in our country as well. We have had a better understanding now of what mental health disorders are, especially since the time of the pandemic. So that's why this is one area which is now more important. So two topics: one, all the lifestyle diseases, and second, the mental health disorders. These are two topics I would say that now they have started to become important. And then after that, lastly, intellectual property rights. So intellectual property rights also has been one topic which once in a while questions keep coming from here. So I would not say that these are as important topic as the others that we listed out, but still once in a while we have seen that questions do come from here, and the questions have been very easy in the manner in which they have been asked. So overall, when you look at all these topics, whether it is space technology, which has conventionally been the most important topic from where a lot of questions have come in the past, or all the others that we discussed, you'll see that more or less the questions that come, even if they are asked in the context of current affairs, they are largely related to all the areas of the static portions of your syllabus. So that's why the static portion of science and technology, related to everything that you read in all these areas, they become very, very important for your mains examination. So this is basically a list of all the topics that are important from your mains perspective in your science and technology paper. Now next, let's have a look at the number of questions that have been coming over the past years in this particular paper. So when you look at all these questions, you'll see that every year in your GS3 paper, 3 to 4 questions have been coming from here. So more or less what it means is that you have to expect that almost 35 to up to 50 marks of questions would come from this area. And this is a very significant amount because of the fact that most of these questions will be very direct questions. You would know the answers. If you have prepared well, you'll know the answers to these questions, and that's why this gives you a chance to score higher as compared to many of the other areas. So that's why these 4 questions or these 3 questions will be always intact, and these always will give you a higher opportunity to score well in your GS3 paper. Now let's try to understand what kind of strategy has to be taken for your mains examination science and technology. Now, when we look at the kinds of questions that have come in the past, we see that there is a basic pattern to how the questions have been coming. And as I also told you before, what we have understood is that there are a lot of questions which come from the static areas of your syllabus. So that's why the broad areas of each and every segment, they become very, very important. So for example, if you consider biotechnology, so in biotechnology, the chapter basically from the perspective of our examination is about the applications of biotechnology. So we need to understand how does biotechnology help in agriculture, how does it help the medical sector, how does it help the industries, how does it help the environment, what is stem cell therapy, what do we mean by cloning, what is DNA fingerprinting. So these kind of topics, right? So all these areas which are broad areas, which are areas which are often associated with the static portions of the syllabus, this is where the questions have been coming from, and this is where we also expect the questions to come from. So that's why, for example, there has been question where it says, how does biotechnology help in improving the living standards of the farmers? Now this question basically is about what? Agricultural applications of biotechnology. Similarly, there has been one question in 2021 mains examination, what do we mean by applied biotechnology? So applied biotechnology is nothing but all the practical applications of biotechnology. So more or less you are talking about applications in one way or the other. There have been questions on biopharmaceutics, there have been questions on the stem cell therapy. So we have seen that these kind of questions have come. Same goes for other areas as well. So that's why the broad topics, the basic topics of each and every chapter and the topics that we had listed out, they become very, very important. Then after that, all the major scientific breakthrough and running stories in the field of science and technology. So more or less what I mean is current affairs, but the broad areas of current affairs, not one-liner current affairs, not just one concept-based current affairs or factual current affairs, something that might be asked in your prelims examination. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the broader topics. So for example, let's say a question has been asked on COVID-19. So a COVID-19 question came in your 2020 mains examination. Similarly, 2021 paper, there was one question related to S400. So S400, India buying S400 has been in the news. So that's why a direct question based on something which is very broad, something which has been a big topic of discussion. Similarly, there have been questions on the human space flight. So we know that Gaganyaan mission is about to be launched. So in this manner, you'll see that there have been a lot of questions where they are related to current affairs, but the broad areas of current affairs, not the kinds which are asked in your prelims examination. Then after that, all the static areas of the syllabus related to current affairs. So for example, right now, communication technology, 5G. So 5G perhaps is a topic which will be important both from prelims and mains perspective. So they can ask you a lot of things. For example, what are the advantages and disadvantages of 5G? What are the technical challenges associated with the implementation of 5G in the country? What kind of changes can 5G bring to the digitization of economy in India? So these kind of questions can be formed from here. So that's why this kind of a question is a mix of both your current affairs as well as the static areas of your syllabus. And lastly, government initiatives and programs. This again will be a topic which is always important. Any new initiative, any new program. So for example, there has been a question on the nano mission that the government of India had taken. Then there are questions where you can cite biopharma mission or biotech kisan kind of missions. So there have been multiple such questions where any government initiative or the program could be cited, or they have been based on these programs and initiatives. Let me give you another example. 2019, ISRO had announced that India will now start working on its own space station. India is not going to join the International Space Station, but India is going to work on its own space station. And as soon as we are done with the Gaganyaan mission, the next project, the next big project that ISRO will start working would be an Indian space station, which they are targeting 2030 for. As soon as this announcement was made, a couple of months later, a question appears in your mains examination. So that's why government programs and initiatives have an equal weightage when it comes to your science and technology paper. So that's why as a strategy, just understand this, that all the broad areas, they are more important. The smaller areas, the conceptual areas are more important from prelims perspective. The broader areas, the discussion oriented areas, they are more important from your mains perspective. Then the current affairs, again the broader topics, the bigger topics that are being discussed today, all the static areas related to them, and then finally all the government initiatives and the programs can be equally important. So this is how you have to strategize your topics for your mains examination in science and technology part. Now, just to take you some of the questions which have come in the past so that you get a basic idea of what kind of questions come. Now, understand this, that the idea here is not for you to know the answer right now, but just to understand that, okay, this is how the questions come. So, first question, if you see, what do you understand by nanotechnology and how is it helping in the health sector? Now, this is as easy a question as they can ask, but there is one trap here. There are two parts to this question. What do you mean by nanotechnology? How does it help in the health sector? So the question is not entirely about the health sector only. It's not that you only have to write about the health sector and you may just introduce what nanotechnology is. No, they have explicitly asked you, what do you mean by nanotechnology? So because they have asked this, it becomes your responsibility that you also spend some time on writing about what nanotechnology is, why nanotechnology is important, what are the areas which make nanotechnology important today, what are the various application areas where we are looking at nanotechnology. Maybe spend some 30 to 40 words there before jumping on to specifics of the health sector. But you have to write something on nanotechnology because they have asked this. So that's why there is one small easy pitfall that you might directly jump on to writing only about the health sector and nothing else. Don't do that. Right, so easy question, ask for 150 words for 10 marks, and you can write a very easy, simple answer here. So just understand that the questions here that have come in the science and technology part in your mains examination are fairly easy in nature. Look at another question. Why is Indian Regional Navigational Satellite System, or IRNSS, needed, and how does it help in navigation? This is another question that has been asked. Again, a very direct question that you have to simply give the information about what IRNSS is, and you have to write about its advantages, why we need it, what are the various application areas that we might be able to cover as a country, what are the security features that add to the value of IRNSS. This is basically what we have to write. And because it also talks about how does it help in navigation, you also have to write about the basic technology behind the working of IRNSS. So this is again something which is very much static in nature, that how does navigation work, how does any navigation satellite work. So for example, you have a basic concept called as triangulation. All right, there's a basic concept called as triangulation. So maybe you can mention the word triangulation and the meaning of the word triangulation and how it is used by IRNSS or any navigation system for that matter with regards to the implementation of navigation satellite. So that's why this is what you have to do. The application areas, what do we mean by IRNSS, how does it help India, what are the various ways in which it helps, and the basic technology behind it. So again, a very static question in nature. Another question, something that we discussed about as well, what are the research and developmental achievements in applied biotechnology? How will these achievements help to uplift the poorer sections of society? So again, a very direct question. We are directly looking at a question based on all the applications of biotechnology. So application wise, there are various sectors, and each and every sector, there are multiple different ways in which biotechnology might help. So this is basically what you have to write about and nothing else. So an easy question, and then you have to link it with how does it help to uplift the poorer section of the society. So for example, when it helps the farmers to improve their productivity, this is one of the ways. This is one of the ways in which it helps the farmers to earn more, to have a better living standard. At the same time, there are various different sectors. So for example, in the industries it helps. It helps in the biofuel sector. And because it helps the biofuel sector, you increase the employment opportunities in the biofuel sector. At the same time, it also helps the cash crops. It also helps in the medical field in making some of the procedures and surgeries also cheaper compared to what they are currently, making things which were impossible until now be also being possible. In the industries, it helps improves the living standards altogether everywhere. At the same time, what you can also include in these kind of answers is what the government has been doing. So for example, let's say the biopharma mission or biotic kisan mission, so G1 mission, all these kind of missions can also be mentioned as a part of this particular answer. So as you can see, all these three examples that we have taken, these are examples where you can see that the questions are very easy in nature. They are coming from the static areas and they are not going to be very difficult for you to answer in your GS3 paper. Now lastly, let's have a look at the various sources from where science and technology has to be prepared. You have the Yojana and the Kurukshetra magazines, because these are two magazines where once in a while you'll find that there are topics which are very, very important from the perspective of your examination, something where they can directly pick the papers from. So that's why these two topics, but they have to be read selectively. They have to be read selectively. Then after that, Science Reporter and Down to Earth, another set of magazines which are very, very important. So for example, if you see the August 2022 edition of the Science Reporter, you'll see that there is a wonderful topic that they have covered, and it's about how to develop the scientific approach in India in the children or in the students in general. So that is what they have covered. It's a very, very important topic which again can directly come in your mains examination. So that's why once in a while they would cover these kind of topics. Then the newspapers, the Hindu and the Indian Express, at least one of the two, they always have to be read, and you will see that the questions every year, the kinds of questions they have been asking, you can very easily get your answers to most of them in these two newspapers. So that's why these two newspapers, or at least one of these two newspapers, have to be followed very regularly. And then finally, there is one program called as the Science Monitor program, which is there on the YouTube channel of Rajya Sabha TV as well. And you can follow that. Direct questions may not come in the examination from what they cover in this particular program, but you will get a lot of points, because they do discuss a lot of initiatives or programs or anything new that the government of India might do or the Department of Science and Technology is doing. So that's why those kind of areas are covered in this program, and many a times you might get a few points which you may add to your notes. So that's why a question directly cannot be expected from programs like this, but you do get a lot of knowledge, you do get a lot of points that can make your answers look better, that can enrich your answers altogether. So that's why from that perspective, this is one program that I would say is important, and that's why, and it's a very simple small program that's just 15 minutes or 20 minutes of your time in a week's time. So that's why I would say that this is a good program to follow. So overall, these are the kinds of sources that you would have to take when it comes to the sources related to science and technology. So in this session, we have understood the syllabus of your examination for science and tech in mains, the kinds of questions that come in the examination, what's the basic strategy that you should follow for this examination, and what are the various sources that you have to refer to when it comes to science and technology part of your paper. I hope that this session helped you in understanding the mains part of science and tech, and you would be able to do better in your examination with the help of this session. With this, I wish you all the best for your examination. Thank you very much for joining the session.